I'm Dawn Garcia. I'm the director of the John S. Knight Journalism Fellowships here at Stanford. And joining me today is Pam Maples. Hi, Pam.
Hi.
Pam is the JSK Managing Director of the fellowship.
So we
Uh,
have a lot of really great questions coming
oh,
in.
okay. Great.
We'll do our best to get through as many. I'm going to just rapid fire some to you, Dawn. Um,
Okay.
I want to tell everybody who's here, we have a lot of people here, that also Mary Beth Bach of our team, who helps us with selection, is answering questions kind of as fast as she can in the chat.
Okay.
So there's a couple of ways you'll get information. Here's a great question that is one of my favorite. We've gotten a little before. Someone is asking, they say, I've heard you go to great lengths and really prioritize the makeup of the cohort. What is it that you're looking for this year?
So we are looking for people who really want to reimagine journalism and really are committed to journalism. This is not a year off to sit under a tree and read a book. So we want people who really want to improve journalism and that they do that through their own development as a leader and as a person who can help journalism. We want people who are curious, who are flexible. We change things up every year, so not assuming it's all going to be the same. We want people who want to be in a cohort of a diverse cohort of people from all over who have different mindsets, who come from different countries. So this is a learning experience. The cohort experience is as much important as anything else that we do. We are looking for people who are ready to lead with courage and innovation, and are not satisfied with the status quo. It's not good enough out there. What the current situation is for journalism or democracy. So we want people who are really determined to tackle things that are needed. Did I miss anything?
No, I think that's great. I think you covered it. Sort of a I think this question kind of follows nicely on that one, which
Okay.
is, Don, what are some examples of goals that fellows have worked on to achieve during the course? What are some of the goals? I think it's important for us to explain that we don't dictate the goals,
Yeah.
the fellows.
Yeah.
But can you talk a little bit about what our basic expectation is of how a fellow will approach the program their time here at Stanford,
Sure. Let me
and what
start.
we do to help them kind of set their goals?
Sure. So I'll start and then Pam, you can jump in too. So we are very intentional. We don't just drop you off in the deep end of the swimming pool. So you've applied. If you're selected, you're coming in, and things may change from the time when you applied to the months later when you get here. So we want people to challenge their assumptions and their mindsets and be open. So we have a very intense in a good way orientation during September before classes start here at Stanford to with a coach, with a facilitator to figure out, okay, how are you going to approach the first quarter? Not the whole year, start with the first quarter. There's 3 quarters here. And to really using systems thinking and design thinking and other great ways, other great tools to think about what problem do you really want to solve, and not that you have the answer to that problem already, because then you don't need a fellowship. So we do that at the beginning. Every quarter, we have a reset workshop to think about where you are and what you're doing for the next quarter. And then each of you have a coach. So it's Pam and me and Alberto Mendoza, who's the other managing director. And we meet with you regularly to look at your goals, what we can tell you about how you might be able to find things at Stanford that will help you, other alumni that could help you. And so that's the way we set goals. What else, Pam? Anything else that
No, I
yeah.
think you covered it. One of the things we like to say to people is that our role as advisors
Mhm.
is to help you hold yourself accountable to your goals for the fellowship.
Yeah.
So we're not like, if you're working right now most of us are working in a situation where you have a boss, we're not your boss. But we do help you, we help you frame your goals, and then we do hold you accountable to be present, our big thing is for you to be present and participate in the fellowship and make progress toward refining your goals and deciding how to pursue them with our help and coaching.
Right. And I will just to jump in here. We do have expectations of you, and we could get to that at some point.
Yes.
Maybe a question, but so it's not just that you're here doing anything you want. You are doing what you are setting your goals for, but really the expectation is participating, as Pam said. So it's really not a solitary thing. So we expect you to come to all the events we do, fully be present. We ask you to share your work during the year. So there's things that we have expectations of you, but the goals you're setting for what you want to achieve are goals that you set with our help.
Yeah. Yeah, I have
Okay.
one more thought about that, but
Okay.
first I want to remind people, if you have a question, put it in the Q&A box.
Okay.
And that's helping us monitor which ones to be able to answer as many as we can. So
Right.
use the Q&A box that's at the bottom of the screen.
Okay.
So this is sort of tied to that. We've covered it a little bit, but do people have to develop the topic they want to study or work on when they apply? Should they include or do they just write about what they want to learn?
So it's a little bit of a mix. We don't, it's not good for people if you were just saying, oh, I'm curious about X. I've never thought about it before, but like I'd like to start thinking about it at Stanford. That's not what we're about. So that end of just I have an idea. You also don't want to have it all figured out, because why do a fellowship then? So you're not using the year to explore. So what I'd say is we'd like you to have thought about this some, and maybe there are people that you've seen doing work like this that you're like, wow, that's really interesting. That might work in my community, or I wonder if it would. And you have questions that you're trying to answer so that you've thought this through. You might have tried something in your newsroom or in your organization where you're working and realized, oh, that's a real problem I want to work on. So it's not that you have done no thinking about it or that you have it all figured out. It's that you've explored it to some degree so that you know this is something that you care about.
So what do you think so maybe they applied and got pretty far in our process or even got an interview 10 years ago.
Mhm.
And they're planning to apply again for the first time, reapply, make a new
Yeah.
application this year.
Yeah.
What do you want them to know about any changes or evolution in our criteria and the sorts of people we're looking for?
Yeah. So first of all, don't just send us in your application from 10 years ago. I mean, that seems maybe obvious, but it's not obvious to some people, I have to say. So don't do that. So you want to start, I mean, you're still you, but in 10 years, you've changed. I would think and hope there's things that you've done. For our program, we are continuing to be about a commitment to journalism and great journalism. We have been continuing to focus more on leadership in journalism. And there are many ways to be a leader, but to take responsibility and initiative for making things better. So it's less individual, perhaps, than maybe 10, 15 years ago. We want people to think about where the fellowship in their life fits in the ecosystem, what's going on in journalism and democracy today. So thinking about how that fits in. So if you have an idea that's, if it feels like an evergreen idea, maybe that's not the right thing to propose. So it's how does it fit into confronting today's challenges in journalism? And think about and help us know if you did apply 10 years ago, what have you done in those 10 years? How have your mindset changed, and what is really important to you? Yeah.
So a little bit of granular detail in a way in how we put together a cohort
Okay.
geographically. Our candidates picked based on their geographic region? Are there any quotas? So we're getting some questions about this.
Sure, sure.
Only one
Yeah,
fellow from Africa,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
always two
yeah,
from XYZ.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you want to talk a little bit
Sure,
about.
sure. So it is really fun and challenging to put together a class, isn't it, Pam? Because we have a lot of great people to choose from. And we don't have quotas. There's no this many things. We do have a spot for a Latin American fellow every year, which is funded by a grant from the Knight Foundation, endowment grant. But beyond that, there is no country quotas. We probably would not have 7 journalists from one country if that's our international pool, six or eight journalists. So it's a big world, and we're looking for people who are. We definitely do some regional diversity, but it is not like boxes. We are looking at how to spread it around throughout the world, but also what are people working on that really seem interesting, and that a fellowship is going to make a difference for them in their career and in the world of journalism. So it is an art, not a science. And it's really thoughtful on how we do this. And if you didn't get in, it does not, you really should try again with some thought, because there's just too many great people. That's a good problem to have, but for us, maybe not for you, but so do apply again if you didn't get in.
Is the cohort the same size every year?
A little bit different. It ranges from, we've had 10, and during the pandemic when things were everything was weird during the pandemic, to 18. That's probably a high we won't do again, and that we like to give a really close attention to people. So it ranges by just a few differences a year. Mm-hmm.
So here's one I want to answer.
Okay.
So someone is asking, they're saying it's a little tricky to make the selfie video, explaining the primary motivation for applying, different from some of the similar questions in the application. Are you expecting new information in the video? No, but in a 1-minute video is just great, and we've done this now for several years. It's a great length for you to kind of pull together the threads that run through your written application. Think of it as for those of you who are writers, think of it, and I mean, any kind, frankly, any kind of journalist, you have your focus, your sort of summary, your nut graph, we used to call it in newspapers. So think of your video that way. So you do not have to make it entirely original. Also, make sure we can hear you and we can see you.
Yes.
Don't stand out in gusty blowing wind with, all that wind noise behind you.
Or be in a really dark room.
But beyond that, this doesn't need to be fancy.
No.
This is not about producing a marketing video, for instance. This is just being yourself. And we love watching these videos.
It's my favorite part.
Gives us a little sense of you.
Yeah, I just say, when we get to an application, Pam and I read differently. She maybe waits. I open it, see who it is, get a little bit of sense of the person, and then I go to the video, because I just want to connect and see the person and get a little sense of them. So no big production values, just be yourself and give us a it's the 1 minute. Why do you want to do this, and who are you? Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about what makes a successful application or project from a visual journalist?
Okay, I love visual journalists. I can just say I'm always on the lookout to make sure we have good visual journalists in our pool that we're selecting from, and hopefully in the fellowship class every year. So for you, for visual journalists, it's in some ways the same. It's your best work that you want to show if you're going to show work. As an example, I'm sorry, was this question about examples or project?
So just talked about successful applications or projects.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So there's a number of ways to be a great journalist, a great applicant as a visual journalist. So thinking about the work that you're doing, what are challenges that you're facing that are happening right now in your field, in your area? So, it could be, obviously there is, I hate to even say AI, we don't need 50 AI applications, but that is a giant issue for photojournalism. There's also a number of issues about how do you cover communities. So people have done projects about visually connecting with community, and what does that look like for journalism. It really is, what do you care about and think is a compelling issue that is going to help the field, help confront some of the challenges in journalism today. So we're very interested in the work of visual journalists, because it's one of the most important parts of the field. Yeah.
Cool. So, I think we have a lot of questions about, how to do a successful application. I don't know if we'll get to all of them. I want to make a plug to people that, if your question is just, you can't find anything on the website about it, you can email us and we'll put
Yes.
that address back up at the end, and we'll do our best to answer you promptly. If you're an international application staring at tomorrow's deadline, I can't promise you we'll get to you, because our volume this week of emails from people goes way up. And we're also, we have events today with our current class. So
Yeah.
we'll do our best. But I want to switch to some questions that I think are important about kind of what happens and what it's like if someone were to become a fellow.
Okay, great.
So, for fellows with families, the question someone is asking is, what flexibility is available for fellows with families, given the expectation to reside at Stanford full-time? I would turn that a little, because I think what the person means, taking a little bit of a guess, is, can their family can't come? Is their family required to come? And what is that experience like?
Yeah.
So you want to fill in a little bit for people what that's
Sure.
like? I will say we also have some information on our website in the fellowship experience section of becoming a fellow, through the eyes of recent fellows, about this.
Right. So our fellowship program from the beginning and to today is very interested in helping support the fellow, and that means them and their family. So, people who are either coming with families, occasionally people cannot, there's, life's complicated. We encourage you to try to see if that could work, because you get two for the price of one. Your spouse or partner, if you have one, is able to participate in our program to a very large degree. Come to our events to take some classes. There are some classes that are not open to spouses, and we can answer that question more if you became a finalist. But so really encourage people to come with their families if they would like to do that. The schools here are very good if you have children. Pam, you had twin boys when you were a fellow, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so people come and really, it's a family event. It's a family experience. Again, you're not required to bring your family, but it often helps you and your family to take advantage of all the experiences that's on the Stanford campus, and including the wonderful swimming pools, which I love, and other things. And also it's like a little United Nations here with the kids from different countries in the schools here locally, and also in the fellowship class. So we try to support as best we can you as a full person. So that means you as a parent as well, or a spouse and a partner. Yeah. What do you want to add to that, Pam?
So how are we talk on our website? Someone's obviously been doing their research or watched previous webinars. The workshops we do for leadership, how are they tailored to address individual leadership challenges?
Okay. So we do a series. We've increased our number of leadership workshops, because we found they really are helpful for people to take. Most journalists never get this, right? It's kind of training to take on leadership roles, managing people, having difficult conversations, So there's things that are really helpful for anyone. And in some of these workshops, you are going to bring a challenge that you have that you're trying to explore, and so it can be tailored in that way. And then the coaching that we do, people come up with, everybody's got different lives and different experiences that they're working through. So Pam and Alberto and I are coaching and Georgie on what kinds of ways to help you meet those leadership challenges. So I think there's some room for that, no question.
Here's one I'll take.
Okay, good.
Since it's kind of part of my role here.
Okay, yeah.
Someone is asking, are there limits on the types of courses that they can take as fellows?
Sure, yeah.
There are parts of the university where it's not possible to take classes, or certain classes, but largely, the university is very open to the campus, and faculty are very open to fellows. I won't bog this because we have limited time into how that process works, but we coach you and give you information. It is really up to the fellow to take a lot of initiative, to reach out to people, because you're not getting academic credit, you're not getting a degree, so you don't register for classes in the traditional way. If you've been in college, and we don't require a college degree, by the way, but if you've been to college, it doesn't work in the way you would as a student or a graduate student. But we give you a lot of information about that. I'm sort of the troubleshooter liaison. In certain parts of the university, we've worked out sort of special arrangements to help fellows get access to some of the really popular classes that tend to get completely full of regular students. So you have a pretty wide range of the sorts of things classes that you can sit in on. You're not getting grades. And in a lot of classes, that means you don't do any of the homework. If a class is what we call experiential, meaning it's hands-on learning, you will usually want to or be expected to participate in those exercises, which is the way you learn. So, it's kind of a very wide range of possibilities. We mostly try to work with you on the why. Sometimes you need to take a class just for joy. And sometimes you want to take the class to sort of deepen your skill in something, but it is having sort of an intentional thought, without overthinking it or overscheduling yourself. The fellowship is very busy. Fellows are very busy, but they're busy in a different way than day-to-day work, and they have much more freedom. There are expectations, 2 events a week we expect fellows to participate in that we organize, and that includes those workshops. But beyond that, you have much more control of your schedule. It's not a leisurely schedule, but you have much more control over how you spend your time and what you prioritize. So classes are one piece of that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to say that again, Pam, because it's really great. Classes are one piece of that. You're not here to get a degree, so you're not 18 going chasing after that. You got many, many things that you can do. So great.
So, this is good. Okay, I'm going to go back to a couple of, applicant questions.
Okay, sure.
I am delighted to read that we have a programmer, at least one here. We have more. And this person's saying, I'm a programmer working in and with newsrooms. Are there specific things I should think about differently from reporters and editors when I apply? No.
I was going to say, Pam, take that one. No.
Answer the questions.
Yeah.
Not that you wouldn't be genuine, but just be yourself and answer the questions as you want to answer them. We consider you a journalist.
Yes.
That's like what newsroom, if they're lucky enough to be able to have developers and programmers, would not want that and not include people as a full part of the team. So we very much, just like Don was talking about visual journalists,
Yeah.
I could talk about social journalists. There are many flavors of journalists. if you're doing the work in public relations, you're not a journalist right now. So,
Yeah, if there are many,
that's
there are
kind of
many,
where the line is. Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, coders and all kinds of people are journalists in newsrooms, and we want to
Right.
do.
And someone is asking, what kind of outputs do you expect from fellows to address challenges in journalism? Can you share some examples? We're not going to take time to do that here
Yeah.
because if you go to our website and
Mhm.
you will find a link to fellows are expected every year to write posts on Medium that we work with them on that talk about the sorts of things they're doing and experiencing. And there's a whole collection of these from the last few years. And you can also find the link off of Fellowship Experience. So you can see a wide range of topics and work that they're doing.
Yeah, check that out.
So we have like maybe 20 minutes, maybe a few more rapid fires. What do you?
Sure, go ahead.
There are fields in the application with space for 250 or 150 words. Would it be an issue if I wrote less?
Yes.
Well, I would say,
Oh, I say yes.
you don't have to fill the
Oh, no,
box.
that was
But-
a
but
joke.
if
But what I
you-
don't, yeah, but we don't want you to put one sentence, okay? Uh, not that you have to use every single character count, but use the space you have. You don't have to, pad it, but we'd rather, use the question to a chance to answer a question. So like I would say, I am turned off by one sentence answers generally because we kind of begs the question, what are you thinking more beyond that?
Yeah, when I see a one sentence answer, the question I have or I'm left with is, has this person really thought about this?
Right.
So, you may have a clear idea in your head, but if you don't share that, whatever the answer is, if you don't share that with us, we don't know it.
We're not mind readers.
So sometimes I tell applicants, think about if you were sitting and talking with someone and they were asking you these kinds of questions in a conversation, what would you be saying?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
that's someone that you don't know.
Yeah.
So, this kind of leads to another question where someone asks basically, how important is the interview if you make it to the interview? What if you're not that eloquent? Is that going to sink you? You want to talk a little bit about how we treat the whole package?
Yeah. So, obviously, everybody applies. There are no robots reading your applications. They're all real people reading your applications and a number of eyes on your application. So, we've got alumni involved, we've got outside readers, we've got directors. So we then narrow and we are looking at who we are going to interview. The interview, just say a little bit about the interview. The interview, we feel very strongly that it's for us to learn the most about you and what you want to do as a fellow, if you were going to be a fellow. So it is not it's certainly, we have serious questions, but it is not a confrontational, mean interview. It is, but we will ask questions. We want to have that chance for you to tell us why you want to do this. It's not a presentation or a speech. Somebody said they're not that eloquent. It's not a presentation. It's not a formal, it's going to be a conversation. And you should be ready for the interview. That's the other thing is, reread your application. What did you say you wanted to do and why? And maybe what have you learned since you applied about your question that you have more questions? So it is important, but it's not a presentation. Yeah.
So someone's references are, I'm going to kind of link two things together here a little bit. Actually, no, I'm not. We'll do these separately. Someone says their references are asking what they are expected to provide. Can you provide some information or an outline? So I'm going to assume this person may not have looked closely at the application or read all of our information. So I would suggest you back up and do that because all we ask is that you provide the names and contact information for your references. And what you need to let them know is that you're doing that and make sure that they are, open and willing to talk with us if we contact them about you. So they don't need to prepare anything in advance. They don't write letters. They just need to know, obviously, that you're applying, and you'd be wise to explain to them why and what you're trying to do during a fellowship, whatever your goal is, leadership development, whatever it is. And and give us the contact information.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Anything
Yeah,
else?
we don't require letters, which is I think a big relief to a lot of people. That's a lot of work for people to do, and we don't need that. I would say think about who you want to have as your references. Probably not your mom or your best friend from the newsroom. It's like thinking about people who are going to be able to talk about your work and you, and they know what you have proposed to do. So, um, I think I really like to see, three different kinds of people that are your references. And again, we may not call all your references, so they don't need to be sitting on the edge of a chair waiting. And they also don't need to write letters.
So someone asked, and I think this is an opportunity maybe for a minute, explain a little bit about what happens after someone applies. The person asked, do we research applicants or candidates on LinkedIn? So all of us are involved in this process. I happen to be the person who coordinates and sort of leads our evaluations. So once you apply, your application is seen by, no application is seen by just one human.
Right.
So we have a lot of very helpful and trustworthy to us alumni, and we enlist them, and they help look at all the applications. They give us their feedback. We look at applications, and for those that seem the most like on point and promising, then they get another round of deeper review by a different set of alumni. So there's multiple layers here. And if someone is moving toward the stage that we think we might want to interview them, I will do, through this process at different times, I will do different kinds of online checks. Whatever you have out there publicly, I might see it. If you're from a country and you're not don't have LinkedIn or you don't use it a lot, don't rush out today before tomorrow's deadline and create a LinkedIn, but so yeah, it's fair game and it might get looked at. Alumni sometimes do that as part of their review. So just consider that whatever you have out there publicly, it's quite likely we're going to give it a look.
Right.
It's often super helpful in positive ways. So
Yeah, we often find out like, oh wow, we didn't know they were doing XYZ 2 years ago. So you might think about what are you including in your application that we should know. Make sure if things are out there that you might want to highlight.
Rico, who's helping us with this workshop, Enrico Benjamin, just dropped a little reminder here that I think it's important. We've got a little time, but I want to drop this in there. It's kind of obvious, but please be sure if you are not in the Pacific time zone, I mean, especially too, if you're an international applying tomorrow, that you have the time zone difference calculated correctly. The deadline is 1 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow. And as Dawn said, we've seen people, break their hearts because they waited until 12:55 and their video got stuck in upload and they couldn't submit until at 1 o'clock. And they start reaching out to us and they want to submit at 1:10 or 1:30. And we just are really committed to this deadline.
It's not, because it's not fair.
It's not fair.
I'm all about being fair. It's not fair to people who got in on. So just spend some extra time. So yeah, to look at the time zones, whatever way works for you, whatever website that does time zones for whatever something that you can make sure you're in the right time zone when you're applying. And don't do it in the last minute. I mean, I would give yourself a couple hours at least, or the day before, so that you
Right.
feel really comfortable, everything's good, you're set, and then you can push submit.
So then we have lots of questions. I doubt we'll get through all of them. So
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
gonna kind of scatter shoot through some of
Okay.
them.
Go ahead. Just yeah.
How would you compare yourself? You'll like this one to Neiman, and Knight Wallace or other journalism fellowships.
Oh, okay, great. So first of all, fellowships are good. I think there are many kinds of fellowships. Those fellowships you just mentioned in the questions are all journalism fellowships at universities, and we all bring something different to the table. And we are all, I mean, I'm in touch with the leadership of those fellowships. They're great people, they're great programs. So I'd say the difference, there's a number of differences. A couple of key things are we are the products of where we are. We're at Stanford University, we're in Silicon Valley, we're in California. There is that ethos of entrepreneurship, of innovation, of California that is part of who we are. Other fellowships at different places are products of the places that they are. At Harvard, at University of Michigan, I was just actually in Ann Arbor the other day. Great program as well. So that's one piece. The focus of these programs are different based on the leadership of the programs. Our program intentionally is focusing on a few things that we really care about, and that is emerging leaders in journalism, and building the ability to have great leadership across journalism, not just title. And we are focusing on empowering those journalists, and also we are interested in press freedom and making sure that fellows are safe and can tackle the challenges they need. And so we are not an East Coast program. We're definitely a West Coast program focusing on innovation, leadership, and diverse pools and diverse classes of fellows. Yeah.
So I'm going to link a couple of questions together and take a little crack of it at it and then let you pull over. Someone's asking how diverse the professional backgrounds are of a typical cohort. And someone else has asked, are you interested in people working on projects to change the public opinion of journalism, meaning outside of the newsroom?
You
And
want to take this? Pam?
huh?
You
Yes,
want to take this?
I want to take this.
I know. I thought you would.
We have no quotas, as Don said, but we look for all sorts of diversity when we start pulling together the cohort, when we start making our final decisions. And that includes professional diversity. We see every year that the conversations in the room are richer, and that the fellows, the number one benefit fellows often tell us they get from this time is what they learn from each other. And that's not just skills, that's worldview, life experience, perspectives. And so we look for all those things. And as far as projects to change the public opinion of journalism, that sits in what I sometimes think of as journalism adjacent or journalism support organizations. And particularly, it's happening around the world with like the ICFJs of the world and the Pulitzer Center. And in the US, there's this growing ecosystem of organizations that are advocating and trying to help newsrooms and support journalists. We would not pick a cohort that has only those sorts of people, but if your work is focused on supporting and helping and improving and addressing the challenges of journalism, yes, you're eligible to apply.
Great. Yeah, good. Oh my gosh, 6 minutes left, and I need 30 seconds at the end just to wrap up.
Yeah. Let's see, what we have here is, I've heard many fellows come to the program with entrepreneurial ideas of journalism-focused businesses they want to start. Can you speak to what these businesses have focused on, how the fellows were supported by the program? And I saw that someone else said, what do you mean when you say you aren't the program is not about launching startups.
Yeah, so I'm going to start and Pam jump in. We're not a startup accelerator. There are those out there and, good on them. And maybe that's something that you want if you're doing this. There have been very few businesses started here. There have been a lot of nonprofit organizations created, or people have taken leadership roles within new organizations. So that's more of the focus. Some of this entrepreneurial ideas have created a few businesses, but that's not our main focus. Do you want to say a little more?
Yeah, I would say there's no blanket on this, but I would say that often the fellows who end up launching a nonprofit, that is not the specific goal they had in mind when they
Mhm.
arrived at Stanford.
Right, right.
They had a problem, or they wanted to work on a problem. They wanted to help solve something in journalism. Not, it might be part of the big grand problems that we have all over journalism, but they were working on something that was bothering them in the communities they serve and work on.
Yeah.
And through their own process and the experiences we put them through, they come to decide, well, the way I need to do this, and that often happens in the spring.
Yeah.
Or in the later part, they don't often have it actually launched when they leave here. They are working through that process, and there's several examples of those kind of things. I can think of people that if you had told me in September they were going to start a nonprofit, I would have said, no, I don't see that that's where they're headed or what they're interested
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
So, but they let themselves be open to the
Mhm.
experience. They resisted getting caught up in any Silicon Valley startup fever. But they came to it through this whole process.
Yeah.
So that's one reason, again, to your point, Don, an accelerator is an entirely different
Yeah. Yeah.
purpose, a different experience, and it's not what we are.
And just to quickly circle back, it's also, you don't need to come with either a startup or a nonprofit organization idea in mind when you come. You have a problem you want to solve, and you may end up getting there in different ways. And people don't generally do this in 1 year. It's a long tail of the fellowship. So it's the beginning of an innovation and exploration for yourself and what you're going to be doing in journalism. Yeah. Okay. Ooh, 2 minutes. Do we have a question or two more? And then I'll wrap.
Let me cruise back through these. We have a lot of things in here.
And if you don't get your question answered, and we're sorry, we're trying to do them as fast as we can.
Is there an ideal time in a journalist career to participate in the fellowship?
There are better times than others. Yes. So we do require 5 years experience. If you don't have enough experience, you may not make the most out of a fellowship because you don't have the questions in mind that you really want to be asking yet, or experience under your belt to know what is really important. We would like you to have time left in your career to have this be an impact on you. So there's no age limit, but it would be best if it was in the middle of your early to mid, so that you are working on these issues and that we have an impact on life in you and the fellowship and journalism.
So one other thing to remind everyone of is, if your question didn't get answered, yes, you're welcome to email us, but you may also find the answer in the 2 previous webinars we did last month,
Right.
which the recordings of those are both on the Become a Fellow page.
Yeah.
And so there's look through those.
Yeah, check those out.
Particularly if you're in a hurry to hear from us.
Yeah, check those out, and the website. Again, there's a lot on there. Okay,
Yeah.
I think
it's time to wrap up.
If you have a passion for reimagining journalism, and you are eligible, we want to help you be the best candidate you can be. So thank you for being at this webinar. You can follow our links in our website. You can write us at JSK Fellowships at Stanford. Thank you for attending, and we're so looking forward to reading your application. Thank you, and thanks, Pam.
Thanks.